I still remember that night. The night the forest spoke back to me. It was supposed to be quiet, calm, and ordinary. I was just trying to escape the noise of the city, to find some peace in the woods near an old cabin I had rented for the weekend. People in town called it Whispering Pines. They said the forest there could play tricks on your mind, especially around Halloween. I thought it was just another local ghost story, until I learned it wasn't. The first night was calm. The air smelled of pine and wet soil. The wind hummed through the trees like a song only nature could compose. I built a small fire outside the cabin, made myself a cup of coffee, and sat watching the embers glow against the darkness. Every now and then, I heard a rustle in the leaves. Foxes, I told myself, or raccoons scavenging for food. But as midnight approached, the forest grew silent, completely silent. Even the crickets stopped singing. It was a kind of silence that doesn't just fill your ears, it presses against your chest, like the whole world is holding its breath. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint, like a woman's voice carried by the wind. It said my name once, Ethan. I froze. The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the stones beside the fire. My heart began to pound so loud, it drowned out everything else. I stood, staring into the darkness, waiting for the sound again, but there was nothing, just the fire crackling softly. I told myself I was tired, maybe half asleep, but deep down, something about that voice felt too real, too close. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard faint whispers from outside. They weren't words, just fragments of voices, like a crowd murmuring prayers in the distance. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of the forest. I was standing among the trees, and hundreds of pale faces stared back at me, their eyes hollow, their mouths moving, but no sound escaping. When I woke up, I found dirt on my feet, as if I had been walking outside. The next morning, I tried to shake it off. I went hiking deeper into the woods to prove to myself there was nothing supernatural here. The forest was beautiful in daylight. Tall evergreens, sunlight slicing through the mist, the sound of a distant stream. I walked for hours until I found something strange. An old wooden fence half buried under vines, and behind it, a row of small stone markers, graves. Most of the names were weathered away, but one stood out. Clara Whitmore, 1876 to 1894. I don't know why, but that name clung to me. Clara, the same soft voice that called my name last night, had that same fragile tone. That evening, I asked the old man at the local store about the graves. His face changed immediately. "Son," he said quietly, "you shouldn't go near that part of the forest. Those woods ain't right. People hear things out there. Voices, screams. It's the Whitmore girl still wandering after what happened." "What happened?" I asked. "She went missing. Halloween night, 1894. They found her dress near the river, torn apart. Some say she never left. The forest took her." I laughed nervously, trying to dismiss his story. But when I got back to the cabin that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The wind had picked up again. I locked the doors and sat near the fireplace with a flashlight and my phone. Around midnight, I heard soft tapping at the window. 3 slow knocks. I turned off the flashlight, thinking maybe it was a branch, but the tapping came again, louder this time. When I finally gathered enough courage to peek through the curtains, there was nothing, just the reflection of the firelight. Then, as I turned away, a face flashed against the glass, white, hollow-eyed, gone in an instant. I stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. The beam flickered across the floor, and I saw something wet, footprints leading from the window toward the door. I followed them, shaking. They stopped right at the front door, then turned back toward me. The air grew heavy. My ears popped like the pressure had changed, and a faint whisper filled the room again. "Ethan, help me." I could barely breathe. The door handle began to rattle violently, and the lights flickered. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a metal poker from the fireplace, and stepped back. Then, all at once, the door burst open, slamming against the wall. The cold wind rushed in, blowing out the fire, but no one was there. When I looked down, though, I saw it again. Bare footprints in the dirt, small, like a woman's. They led outside, into the dark. Against every ounce of reason, I followed them. The moonlight barely pierced the canopy as I walked deeper into the forest. My breath formed clouds in the freezing air. The footprints stopped at the old grave fence. I saw movement. A figure in white, standing among the stones. Her hair was tangled, her head slightly tilted, and her eyes, they reflected the moonlight like glass. "Clara?" I whispered before I even realized I said her name. She turned slowly, and the sound that came from her wasn't human. It was like a cry buried beneath water. The trees around me groaned and shifted, their branches twisting together as if the forest itself was alive. Then she spoke again. "He took me here, the man with the lantern. He still walks among the trees. He doesn't like strangers." I didn't understand what she meant until I saw the light, faint at first, then brighter, a lantern swinging in the distance, moving closer with every step. I thought maybe it was another hiker, but as it approached, I saw the figure holding it. Tall, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long black coat. His face was hidden in shadow. "Who are you?" I called out. The man stopped about 20 feet away. He tilted his head slightly, and then I saw it. The lower half of his face grinning wide, his teeth too sharp to be human. The lantern's light flickered, and I realized what hung from his belt. Bones, small ones, animal bones, and something else, a human jaw. I ran. Branches whipped against my face as I sprinted through the darkness, tripping over roots, scraping my hands on the dirt. The sound of the lantern's chain clinking followed me. At one point, I thought I lost him, but then I heard the whisper again, louder, everywhere at once. "Don't look back." I didn't. I ran until I saw the cabin's faint orange light through the trees. I slammed the door shut behind me, locked it, and pushed the furniture against it. For hours, I sat there, trembling, listening to the wind howl outside. At one point, I heard footsteps circling the cabin, slow, deliberate, dragging. Then the sound of the lantern chain again. By dawn, it was gone. When the sun rose, I stepped outside. The forest was still. No footprints, no lantern, nothing but the sound of birds returning. I packed my things and drove straight back to town. Before I left, I stopped at the general store to tell the old man what happened. When I mentioned the lantern, his face went pale. "Lantern man," he whispered. "You saw him? God help you, son. You weren't supposed to talk to her. That's how he finds you." I tried to laugh it off, but my throat went dry. That night, after I returned home, I unpacked my bag and noticed something stuck to the bottom of my boot. A small piece of wood, shaped like part of a grave marker. It read, "Clara Whitmore." And ever since that night, I hear her whisper sometimes, especially when the wind moves through the trees outside my apartment. Last Halloween, I looked out the window and saw a faint orange glow between the trees at the edge of town, like a lantern, swinging slowly. I blinked, and it was gone, but I swear, I could still hear her voice. "Ethan, don't look back."